Good morning to another episode, Leaders Unpacked. My name is Andrei Veskimeister, and today I'm pleased to have here Vice President of Omniva's international business, Sven Kukemelk. Sven,
Good morning.
how are you doing today?
Busy day. It's vacation time, but in e-commerce it's never boring. So good to be here.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
And you indeed touched the topic precisely. So you are in international delivery business. How this? We all know that there were very busy time during the COVID time in international business. How the things are going today? Whether the intensity is stayed high? Is it growing? Is it declining? What's your overall feeling?
Well, basically, COVID was like a great party. So everyone got drunk, and when you get drunk, it's still fun, and you party and dance, and it's never ending. And whenever you make projections and plans, being drunk, then probably reality will hit. And then we got into hangover phase, when all of a sudden everyone expected that the 30% growth each year will continue for an unlimited time period, and we saw, oh, market is not growing. It's actually in certain markets maybe a couple of percent going down. But so it's the new reality. It's now here. I think we're past the hangover phase. We're adapted to a new reality that we are actually growing still, but we're growing 2-3% a year, and it's this market itself is still the same as it was. Everyone benefit from one-time boost in the COVID, but it did not provide long-lasting effects that e-com is now revolutionized and no one will ever go to the store, etc. We still have changes in generation, and the old generation will still prefer to see, touch with their own hands certain product and feel more comfortable, versus younger people are prone to use more e-commerce, and I think that it will continue to be so.
Cool. But what do you think? There is sort of you can buy goods from international sites and be delivered to your home, but there is still also domestic e-commerce in every country. What do you see? What are the trends there? Whether this e-commerce is moving towards local e-commerce, or people are practicing international commerce and it doesn't care at all where it shop at all.
Well, here we need to also understand that there is a difference between the large markets and small ones. So in US, it's definitely domestic demand which drives the e-com, because the whole market is so big. Same goes for China, and also UK, France, Germany. It's still dominant. When we're talking about smaller markets, and not as small only as Estonia, but countries like Sweden, Norway, Finland, Czech Republic, or Romania, yes, it's domestic demand is there, but there is also international one, and the international one is more likely to be growing because we're seeing consolidation. We're seeing more and more smaller marketplaces being absorbed into it. It's basically like cell phones. When cell phones came in late 90s, we had probably 80 to 90 cell phone producers who would all make, including Philips, cell phones. And then all of a sudden we would have something like 5 which take 95% of the market share. So we're actually going to see the same scenario in terms of the e-commerce that we had. At a certain moment, it's like mushrooms after the rain. You have it everywhere, and now we're seeing the consolidation, because not all of them are sustainable long term. And the margins in e-com only works because it's cheaper to order online versus taking it on spot. And if someone is not actually efficient, doesn't have good delivery solutions, you're not going to be cheaper, hence you're not going to be surviving this.
Okay, you mentioned already China and big countries. There is AliExpress, who is most probably one of the biggest in eastern part of the hemisphere. Before the COVID, they were growing very rapidly, and the volumes were growing, and then China got hit quite heavily, both on domestic ruling and also international delivery options. What is the situation with Chinese commerce deliveries? Are they declining, growing? Are they stable? What is the situation there?
So China is still very dominant on a lower end of the value chain. So if you need something which is cheaper, lighter, then that works out for them. As soon as we're going for higher value added goods, then that doesn't make sense because transportation costs would kill anything which is 2-3 kilos, which is heavier, to transport that from a warehouse from China via plane, versus you would take it actually, all of the bigger guys, when we're talking about Amazon or other marketplace, they would try to make the local warehouse close to you where your customers are, and you're going to ship it over with the ships close by, and then you're going to deliver that from the local warehouse ideally. So that's why China, for the ultra lightweight items, is still growing, continues to grow, and I think it's a niche they're going to be successful. I know that they're trying to enter into also heavier goods, and we're seeing a lot of new warehouses being set up in Europe, in Czech Republic, in Spain, in Belgium, etc. So they're trying to get into this other segment, but I don't think it's going to be easy. It's the same like if all of a sudden Dacia would start making Mercedes class cars, it would still take the people some time to adjust with the thinking. So it might be easier for them to come up with a completely new brand, because the customer who's going to AliExpress to order something is probably not looking there for the latest Sony headphones or new laptop or things like that.
Now you mentioned already also another big player, Amazon, in your thread. Some 5 years ago, they were expanding heavily to the Western Europe, and somehow this expansion sort of stopped. How do you see their activities and expansion plans toward the east?
I think that they expanded heavily, looking for new markets, because each company needs growth, and they still have a lot of markets left to grow to. But the challenge they had is that during COVID, the volumes were so big that instead of growing further east, they just were trying to manage the existing ones and rake in the money which they had already in place. Now, when the hangover hit in, they made their warehouses, they upgraded everything. And then all of a sudden, when your volumes dropped, then they had to deal with a reduction of the cost base. So if you're dealing with downsizing, then you're not thinking about how to expand into the new markets. And that's why I think the COVID actually meant that large marketplaces like Amazon, or for that matter even the European ones, or e-shops like Next or About You, etc., really froze their expansion plans, because they had to deal with the volumes they had at hand. And then after that, when the hangover effect hit in, then they were unable to actually look into the development, because most of the development staff were already laid off, because you can't do the same thing. You can't grow and downsize at the same time. It sends a mixed message to the whole organization.
Yeah, and it seemed that in our region, in Central and Eastern Europe, we are going to be the big battlefield between AliExpress and Amazon soon. So.
I don't think so, actually, because the segment is just so utterly different. I think the fact that we don't have strong Amazon presence, for example, in Eastern Europe, it is in Poland, but elsewhere not, is actually providing additional boost to the local e-shops, like the ones we have at the moment in the Baltics or Finland, or which are one-man shows. We're going to, like, one market or two markets or maximum three, like we have in the Baltics Big U group. At some stage, either Amazon is going to take them over or kill them, because I mean, if the local shop gets to buy, I don't know, 1,000 Adidas sneakers a week, then Amazon buys 10 million a week. So the purchase power is just different. The brand awareness is just different. Ability to supply things, etc., and also invest in a market to eat others out is so different. So I think that the biggest losers are going to be sadly the local e-shops, and I would suggest them to try to find a focus or a niche which would be more suited to them. Like Etsy is not trying to be the same as Amazon, but looking in local handicraft or things like that. So our local suppliers should either look for also additional markets to grow their presence, to increase, like to look at Central Asia or Caucasus, something which actually Eastern European web shops would be fairly competitive, because it will still take years until big guys will enter those markets, or then look for completely new niche. But offering laptops or cell phones, they will never be able to do that cheaper than Amazon or big guys who will enter into the market.
Mm-hmm. Before the actual broadcast, we talked in green room, and then we were talking about interesting topic that a decision about delivery, the decision makers is going to be more end users. Previously, it has been also the e-commerce and the seller side. So. Is it so, and what are the facts that support your understanding that the customer is sort of deciding the delivery channels and ways and prices also?
Well, when you go to Amazon or AliExpress or eBay, etc., nowadays you already have multiple choices at checkout. 5 years ago, you would have Ali Global Shipping, Amazon Global Shipping, etc. You would not see who's the carrier, you would not see what do they offer, etc. Now you have usually 3, 5. On AliExpress, on latest order I had, there were 11 options how they can deliver it. So that means that effectively we who are providing the last mile services in markets have to adapt to the fact that we don't only need to make happy the marketplace like AliExpress or Amazon or Nextdoor, etc., but we also need to make sure that the end consumer is happy, because it's not anymore abstract, some end user who gets it anyway because Amazon made that choice for them. It's actually the end user gets the choice that I want to get it in this channel. And for the end consumer, it's about price, speed, but also the location. Is it close by? Because I mean, if I have to go drive 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers to a certain point, and especially when we're talking about e-commerce, it's more prone to the young people. Young people don't want to have the car, they want to use public transportation, they are more environmentally friendly. Is that environmentally friendly if you have to reach parcel, go to one or a remote location? So that's why it's also about the question about customer comfortability.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting and fascinating to see that the customers are going to be a king also in this international delivery business. But talking now about your precise business, I know for a fact that during last years you have gone through quite a big transformation, in a way that before the Russian invasion to Ukraine and Belarus were quite an important destinations for your international delivery business, and now during those 500 days you have switched the destination to Central Asia and other regions. Tell me how the transformation went, and what are the learnings and findings for you personally and for the company.
24th of February 2022, when the war started, was a horrible day. We had at that moment roughly 300,000 worth of e-commerce shipments in Ukraine. We had another 200,000 worth of shipments on the way to Ukraine, another 100,000 in transit via Ukraine to Moldova and other markets. So it was quite a mess to solve it. But I mean, first things first, we can't work on belligerent countries, which meant that we stopped with services to Belarus. That was also coordinated with the government, etc., but it was also our internal conviction, and that we don't want to work with countries where our values don't match. So that meant that no business to Russia and Belarus. Russia we didn't also already do earlier. In terms of Ukraine, that was our largest market, and it hit us very, very badly. So it created us a couple of months of a hole, but then we gradually restarted. When we were in a hole, we were looking at, okay, what we can do to quickly react to this situation. and we actually entered into Central Asian market, and at a certain moment we had 150 tons a month of e-commerce going into Central Asia and Caucasus region, and we really were able to keep growing and developing that area. Now Ukraine has returned, and that's why we're now each month making our record volumes. Also for the last 5 months, each month has been a new record, or all-time record for us. So it seems that the choice has been correct, but for the team it was quite a nightmare to set up new logistical chains overnight and react to this kind of external shocks. So quite an exercise to do, to be honest.
Okay, and now Central Asia and Caucasus are your main destinations, so your expertise in those markets, and then you are looking volumes for those markets as a destination.
I wouldn't say main markets, so we are focused, we are the only country from Western world who has a hub in the area. We have a hub in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, so neighboring China, we can just take things with trucks from China straight over to Bishkek. But we still have a strong focus into Baltics and Finland, Scandinavia. We recently started Iceland. We are now also more focused on Eastern Europe and Balkan region. So markets like Slovenia, Croatia doing good, and also the Caucasus. Basically, we see that we can't provide much added value in larger markets like Germany, France, UK, because there is no need to consolidate. There is plenty of volume going on a daily basis straight to any of the last mile providers. Versus in some of these developing markets, we can really support them from our technological perspective, but also know-how, agreements, contracts we have with customers, and we don't mind working with smaller volumes. This is what we have to be accustomed to. So we want to be the champions of this regional places where we have the chance to actually make an effort and make the change happen.
Okay, fascinating. I know that we could talk hours and hours about those things, but our time is still limited. So the final question, and this is not about the international business, but actually about the last mile. So what do you think about parcel lockers? What do you think about home delivery? What is the future?
I think that, and excellent question, Andre, actually. I think that it depends on the market and the mentality of the people. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all solution. On markets like US, where you have a high amount of people living in residential houses where you can leave it in a safe place, or apartment block buildings in New York have a front desk guy, etc. Their home delivery makes sense. It actually adds value. You can pick it up, and the volumes are big enough. However, when we think about Eastern European countries, we have a large amount of population living in apartment block buildings coming still from Soviet times. There is no front desk guy, there is no safe box, there is no mechanism to support that. So to have ability to be home at 2 p.m. when the courier comes, when you have to be working, etc., that's not sustainable. That's not a good solution. So either the courier companies will have to adjust that their couriers are only working from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., or you're looking for alternatives. And I think in that sense, in these markets, the parcel lockers seem to be a fairly good solution. As the markets mature, as the population grows more to residential houses, we are probably going to see also increase in the home delivery, but this change is going to be fairly slow. And one of the drivers for the change could be also that I know that there are several countries which are already limiting the number of parcel lockers which can be outside, because they don't like necessarily how they look like. So if we need to make parcel lockers into pieces of art, then their functionality and cost will change. So I think for now, for next 10-20 years, parcel locker is the best solution in the East for sure, and is still a usable solution in the West. But if we see the volumes increasing, then people do have a preference to get it at their home if they have option.
Sure, I'm totally in line with you. Although I love parcel lockers, I truly believe that home delivery is not going away. It's actually increasing by the volumes increase in the future. But both of them will have definitely their place in the delivery schemes. So thank you, Sven, for your time. I hope that you will get some interesting context with that video presentation for your business, and it was always interesting talking to you, Sven.
Thanks, Andrea.